Hey guys, this is Stelief here with Closeo. Today I want to talk about a difficult subject in entrepreneurship and startups, which is the subject of letting people go and having to fire people. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I had to do it a few times, and it sucks every single time. It's horrible, it's gut-wrenching, it's stressful, it's tense, and it should be. It's a difficult thing. Whenever you hire people, you take responsibility for their lives, for the opportunity costs that they leave on the table for joining you and trying to help you accomplish your mission and vision and dream. So you need to take that responsibility seriously. What I want to talk about today, though, is how to do when you have to let people go, how to do it right, and how, if you do it right, how that negative event in hindsight can turn into something really positive. Or in our case, how we had to let go of half of our team in a single day, how I danced bye 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 from in sync to them, which is insanity, and how all of them became executives of very successful companies and customers of our product today. And not just that, but all of them remain really good friends to our business and to us individually. Another way of thinking of this is that it might have been the most unscalable growth hack that we pulled off from day one with Close.io. So let me backtrack a little bit and tell you a bit more about this. So what happened was that during a pivotal moment in the history of the business, we were running a large outsourcing and consulting business called Elastic Sales, helping hundreds of startups scale their sales process, consulting them on developing a sales model that was predictable and repeatable. And that business, although it was successful, was a very stressful business to run. And it was a business that was very cash flow intense and was very hard to manage the cash flow because we had to hire tons and tons of people. And we had all these people on payroll, usually in advance of getting all the new clients and customers. And additionally to that, there were certain times a year where we couldn't make as much money. And other times a year, we made a lot more money than the cost that we had. So you had to have ways to finance certain periods over the year to run an overall profitable business. Well, we were underfinanced for that business, and at times it was very, very stressful to manage. And we had built this internal little tool, our secret sauce, Close.io, to help us scale sales and to provide software to salespeople that actually helps them crush it and close more deals. And eventually the software got so good that we decided that we wanted to release it and empower all salespeople in the world, not just our salespeople, to do a better job and be more successful. And that business, when we launched it, kind of took off and showed an incredible amount of promise. So we had this one business that was struggling and was in a very challenged situation on a cash flow basis. And we had this new business that was flourishing and was very promising and exciting. And eventually we got into a phase where we had to make some very hard choices. One of them was that we needed to let go of a lot of people that we didn't need in that new direction we were going with the business, which was moving away from the services and consulting side and fully dedicating ourselves to the product that we had built. So eventually, after a lot of back and forth, after a lot of long nights and long discussions, we made the decision that we needed to let go a good portion of our people, half of the team actually. And I was the lucky one as the CEO to execute that decision, right? Those are one of those moments where you're really, really glad and happy that you have that title. One of the biggest challenges that I had going into this phase was that I never had to let go of a bunch of people in one day at the same time. And I've talked to lots of founders since that have been in a similar situation. We've tried to provide some advice and some perspective on how I did it and why I think it turned out really well. And I want to share that with the world today and with you guys today. So before that day came when I had to let people know that we would have to let go of a good portion of our company, I was wondering if I should announce it to the people that stayed on the team prior to announcing to the individuals that we had to fire and let go, if I should talk first to the group that I wanted to stay with the company, just to keep morale high, to manage the message, to make sure that they're not as surprised and that they're good and that they're going to stay on the team and not leave as they see that we had to let go of a bunch of people they really liked. That is my natural tendency, is to control the message, control what's going on in the company. So typically I would have talked to people that I wanted to stay with the team before telling the rest, So they knew there were no surprises and I had full control of the message and what was going on. And this time I decided not to do that. And a big reason for that is that I didn't want people to know that others would be fired before they knew. I didn't want anyone in the company to know that some specific person would be let go if that person didn't know before. It didn't feel fair, didn't feel like the right thing to do. So what I opted in doing, despite that, was to book a day with and have a one-on-one conversation with every single person in the company, everyone. And when I booked these, I booked with people that would stay on the team as well as with people that wouldn't. And I knew that there was this weirdness of what happens when I tell somebody that they would not stay on the team. They walk out the meeting room and then the next person comes in. It's kind of a weird thing to do, but there was no other better alternative that I could think of. I couldn't have like a town hall meeting and tell people the left half is gonna leave and these people on the right will stay. So it had to be the most respectful thing. It had to be a one-on-one and to be a one-on-one with every single person in the company. And that's what we did. That morning when I drove to work, I've never felt worse in my life. It was one of the worst days ever. I was a new father. I was sleep deprived with all these challenges with the business. And now this day, I hadn't had any sleep for a week. And now this day where I had to let go of some amazing people, I was really unhappy and I was really depressed and stressed out and felt horrible. So on the way to work, I had all these thoughts and all these conflicting emotions. And I remembered that one of the people that we had to let go, she had told me, a year and a half prior when we hired her, that if I had ever to let her go, I had to give her a promise that I would buy her cake as a goodbye present. And I would have to play the song Bye 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 from NSYNC. I thought it was an insane request, but she is and was, still is a very interesting, unique personality. So I smiled and agreed back then. And I remembered that on the drive to the office that morning and had to turn around and drive somewhere to buy a fucking cake. And then once I arrived at the office, I, in a panic, tried to find Bye 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 by NSYNC and downloaded the song just to make sure that I can keep my promise. So what happened was that, the hour arrived and I started having one-on-one conversations with every single one of them. And this was the structure of these conversations. The conversation started by me telling people what the situation was, that these were the challenges we had. These were the big decisions that we had to make on how to move forward with the business. And here's how, we decided and I decided. And these were the implications for them personally. And one of them was that we wouldn't be able to continue working with them and would have to let them go. I got to that as quickly as possible, and I tried to be as plain in my language, as clear in my language as humanly possible. We got to that point really, really quickly. And then the next thing that I did was fully focus on putting myself in the service of the individual and empower them to be as successful as they can with what happens next, and not to leave them alone. So what I would tell people is I would ask them if they have a sense right now, and it was totally fine if not, if they have a sense of what they wanted to do next, if they wanted to find a job, if maybe they thought about starting their own business, whatever it was, do you have a sense for what you want to do next? That was my next question. And the very next thing was to promise them that I wanted to dedicate a substantial amount of time helping them in any way possible to accomplish that goal. So what I did right there and then was we would book in that conversation a 1 to 2 hour meeting for next week to sit down together. And in that 1 to 2 hours, I would dedicate my entire energy on helping them accomplish anything they wanted. If they wanted a job, those 2 hours I would sit there and I would call CEOs and hustle my ass off to get them a job or get them the right job. They wanted to start their business. I would sit there and brainstorm with them how to raise money, how to get into an incubator, if the idea was good or not, how to get started. Whatever it was that they wanted, I would dedicate 2 hours of my time fully for them, to be of service to them and help them as much as humanly possible to get what they wanted. So in that conversation, I told them why we made the decision. I told them that we had to let them go. And then we set that in our calendar. We booked a 2 hour time slot for the very next week to sit down together and work together and put myself in service for them. The next thing we did was, talk about the details. There's some, and this is super weird, but there's some like just hygiene type things that you have to do. Who keeps the laptop, and we're got, keeping access to your email or not, and can you get us this back, and how do we deal with the office keys and all that. So there's a list of these things, and it feels horrible to have to discuss them. I hated it, but I made a list and I made a checklist, and I just, as quickly and as honestly and as truthfully as I could, just went through the list step by step, and we checked off on it. And I asked them if they had anything else to say, if they had any feedback, if they wanted to discuss anything else. And then usually, in some cases we shook hands, in many cases we hugged, and the next person would come in and I have a conversation and tell them the exact same thing. Some people I told them I had to let them go. Some people I told them why I wouldn't let them go, why I wanted and needed them to stay, and how the future of the business would look like. And at the end of all these conversations, there was a little bit of a gathering outside, and the last person that came in was that crazy lady that asked me for the song and the cake. So I had the conversation with her. It went really well. And at the end of the conversation, she asked me, hey, I told her, actually, she didn't ask. I told her, hey, you might not feel like it, but because I had promised you that 1.5 years ago when we hired you, I bought a cake and I put it in the fridge. If you want it, we can have it. If not, that's cool too. I totally understand. I just wanted to keep my word. She started laughing hysterically. She's like, you really bought me a cake? That's fucking awesome. Yeah, let's totally have it. And she's like, and what about NSYNC? And I'm like, I got you. I downloaded the song. If you want me to play it, I'll play it. And she was like, no, who cares about playing? I said you had to dance Bye 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 from NSYNC to me. And I was like, no way. That moment, I was like, no fucking way am I going to dance Bye 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 from NSYNC. I feel like shit. This is the worst day ever. I'm not going to dance Bye 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 of NSYNC. This is an insult to everybody. And she was insisting on it. You man a word. You promised it to me. And she pushed and pushed and pushed. Eventually, we walk out of the meeting room, and there's the entire group of people. I see somebody start, handing out pieces of cake from the cake that I bought. So everybody is a piece of cake and eats. And she's pushing me and pushing me. And now all of a sudden, other people join her and saying, yeah, Stella, you really need to, we had to take all your shit and we had to deal with this big challenge and change. Now you have to dance Bye 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 for us. That's the least you can do. There is a video out there, and I hope you'll never see it, of me dancing Bye 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 to a group of people I had to let go as the final last thing that I did. And sometimes you need to look like a fucking fool and an idiot in order to make people laugh, and in order to keep your word, and in order to put others above you. And this was definitely one of those moments where I did something I really didn't want to do because it was not about me. And I wanted to show it to people. This was not about me. This was not about me keeping my dignity or me feeling good about myself or anything else. This was about doing anything and everything I could do to make these people feel good, move forward, and be successful, because they deserve that. And that's what we did. One of the reasons why these conversations went so well that I didn't explain at the beginning of this video is that it was not a surprise to anyone. We, for a few months before that big day where I had to let go of so many people, before that event happened, we had, almost weekly meetings about our financial situation, about our financial and cash flow challenges, about the thoughts of the future of the business, about the potential of us having to downsize at some point. We talked about all these things very, very transparently. So people knew of the problems we had, the challenges we had. People knew that we thought about making decisions in certain ways that could impact their personal job and their lives. So when that day came where that happened, nobody was surprised. And that made a huge difference. That transparency allowed people to be prepared, allowed people to understand the context of the decision, and allowed them to then be understanding and saying, yes, it kind of makes sense. It sucks, but I get it. And I also feel like I've been part of the ride, and I had a say and an influence in this. And this is not totally random and from the top down. So that was big. Once I stopped dancing Bye 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 and we chit-chatted with the group, and it's kind of a weird thing. You never think of like letting go of half your team and then having everybody smile, eat cake, and have a great positive conversation with the people that stay on the team and with the company. It's kind of surreal. At the end of it, we decided that nobody knew how the next 3 to 4 months of their lives will look like. The people that stayed with the company didn't know, and the people that had to leave didn't know. So we decided and promised that we would go out for dinner in 3 months' time with everyone and kind of give everyone a chance to update what happened, right? Was this the right decision or not? Where's the business? But also individually, where is everyone? And to make sure that we don't just spread ahead and in all kinds of different directions and never hear from each other again, but we come together and we check on each other and see how everything goes. And that's what we did. We sent an invite that day to everyone, inviting them to dinner. And we said, no matter what happens to the business, no matter what happens to everybody individually, let's all come together and share dinner with each other and update each other on our lives, because everyone will have great stories, hopefully, to tell. So that's what we did. What happened next is that every single of these people, we were able to help in one way or another get their next job. Most of them, if not all of them, almost all of them, landed jobs as executives, sales executives, directors of sales, VPs of sales, sales managers at our prior clients, at people that paid us money, at people where our employees had real expertise in doing great at sales, and they were managing sales campaigns. So what happened in essence was that these sales leaders that we raised internally and that did an amazing job for all these clients just went on to step up in their career and become even bigger leaders and bigger successes at those clients' companies. And the funny thing that happened is that we didn't think about is that all of them turned around, and once they became, the new director of sales at this amazing growing startup, they all turned around and became customers of the software. They all became Close.io customers. And some of them today, actually most of them today, are among our best customers, largest in size, best in use case, most successful. Real success stories in all regards, from their career, from what they've been able to do at these companies, and from how our relationship has grown from employee and employer to customer and service provider or vendor. So today's a funny day for recording this video, because today one of the people that we had to that left us even earlier than this event and had only stayed with us for a few weeks as a contractor, but is an amazing human being. He was the only person that ever worked at Elastic Sales that didn't become a Close.io customer. And I was always pounding him and hounding him about that. And just this morning, he became a customer and sent me an email and said, all right, you finally got us. We're excited. Now we're a customer of Close.io. Now go ahead and make your video and write your blog post about how you turn all your ex-employees into customers of your software. And I thought, all right, that's a good enough reason to make that recording and publish this blog post. So what we learned, and we were always joking that it would be awesome if you could indefinitely hire your best future customers and then fire them and have them do amazing in their life and have amazing careers. But obviously that's not the most scalable growth hack of all times. But what I've learned from that experience, obviously in hindsight, you have the distance and perspective to evaluate situations in a less dramatic fashion than in that moment. And if you have to let go of people, it's never going to feel great, no matter what you tell yourself or no matter how many times you watch this video. But if you treat people right, if you put their interest above yours, if you go beyond anything that is expected or reasonable to make them successful, to champion them, to treat them with respect, with honesty, with authenticity, if you share your challenges with your team as the challenges and as the ups and downs are unfolding themselves, and you don't present a lot of bad surprises that are all of the sudden and totally unexpected to people, and if you help them and don't just forget about them after the nice conversation and after making all these promises, but you follow up on these promises and you spend time and invest hours in their success, and you go beyond anything reasonable to make them successful, help them accomplish what they want. And if you then keep investing in the relationship like we did. We showed up all for dinner 3 months later, and we had an amazing dinner and an amazing time. It was great to hear everyone's success stories and where the business was and how things were going. Just a few months ago, we had another dinner with we couldn't make it happen with everyone, but with a big group of the people that we had to let go. And we keep in touch. All of them are customers, but even more importantly, all of them are still really good friends. And one of our biggest prides is how these relationships grew even in a very challenging time, and at a point in time where usually really bad things happen to relationships and people are very heartbroken and very upset, and um, bad things are the outcome at the end of the day. So here's how you take something that's really negative, having to let go half of your team, and you turn it into something positive. Be honest, be authentic, put themselves above yourself. Um, Keep your promises, even if it is handing out cakes and dancing bye 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 to NSYNC, which is insane. And it still will suck and it will still be a very hard decision, but hopefully you too can then, a few months down the line or a few years down the line, look back and see how that negative event actually turned into a real positive for everybody involved. All right, this is a hard story to tell, and it's one of many that a lot of times are untold. We all like to make press releases about all the new hires, the senior hires, all the people we're hiring, how much we're growing, but we don't talk enough about the situations that are tough when we have to let go of people and how it felt and what happens in the aftermath. So I hope that sharing this story is going to benefit other entrepreneurs and startups out there. Please let me know your thoughts, share your stories. You can comment down here, but also if you don't want to, you can just shoot me an email personally to stelly@close.io. Share your story. If you want to, we can jump on a call and we can talk about your challenges and situation, either as a founder who has to let go of people or had to let go of people, or as an employee that was let go. Whatever I can do to help, I'm more than happy and honored to do so. All right. Thank you so much for listening.